Hello and welcome back to Dragon Age 2 Codex readings. This is going up because we have just finished Act 2 on the main series, and this is going to be a list of all the codexes that we have not read during the series, and maybe a few that we have and it's just popped up as not read. So basically we're reading all the not read things from Act 2. So there might be a few ones that just have a little amendment at the end. We're going to read through them because I can't be bothered going through the first video to work out, what the differences is. Anyway, might as well get started if we're going to do this. Oh, also some of these will be from the DLC Legacy because, well, we also did that. For instance, I think this one is from the DLC. Carta Bronto. Sent for more Brontos from Orzammar today. We lost 2 in a landslide and they were carrying full loads of silver and iron. Those responsible have been flogged. The creatures are useful underground in wide tunnels, but not so sure-footed on the mountain passes, and bringing them to the surface in daylight is always a catastrophe waiting to happen. They're spooked by every sign of movement, and once riled up they'll charge just about anything in sight. Bah, must investigate the possibility of using more even-tempered beasts. Donkeys perhaps, the humans swear by them. From the Journal of Ratigan, leader of the Carta in Kirkwall. Deep Stalker. One of the few natural non-Darkspawn creatures to live in the Deep Roads. The Deep Stalker is a reptilian cave dweller known for burrowing into stone passes of the Deep Roads and ambushing prey, usually nugs. They hunt in packs, attacking with round mouths full of serrated teeth or spitting poison from venom glands. Although a single Deep Stalker poses little threat to an experienced explorer, packs can be quite lethal. Genlock. The Genlock is the most common Darkspawn in the underground. They are tough, stocky and notoriously difficult to kill, since many show at least some resistance to magic. They are creatures of darkness with keen senses and an intuitive understanding of the deep places that allow them to take even groups of seasoned warriors by surprise. Genlocks are what make traversing the Deep Road so dangerous. A group of creatures can easily overwhelm and mercilessly slaughter a small party within minutes. Genlock alphas are stronger and more physically intimidating than most Genlocks. They are known for bullying other Genlocks into doing their bidding. Hurlock Alpha. The Hurlock Alpha is more intelligent than the alphas of other Darkspawn types. Usually armed with a large, vicious weapon, they're known to act as commanders on the battlefield, directing and controlling the lesser Darkspawn in their strange, brutish ways. Pride Demon. Pride Demon. Let me explain what it is to face a Pride Demon, my friends. You may scoff and say our talents only exist to face mages, but you will encounter demons often. They'll be summoned by a Maleficar and bound to do his bidding. And while at times they'll be forced into the possession of a host, they will also face you in their true form. A powerful opponent indeed. Do not underestimate it. Pride is powerful and intelligent. When we have encountered one in its true form, its most common attacks are bolts of fire and ice. Fire they will use to burn an opponent, and a magical flame that will combust anything you wear regardless of make. Ice they will make use of to freeze an opponent in place. Be cautious, for they enjoy employing this against warriors in particular. More than one group of Templars has made the mistake of attempting to overwhelm a Pride Demon and suffered the consequences, believe me. And if you think that having the aid of other mages will assist you, you are wrong. Pride Demons can render themselves immune to magic for short times and are adept at dispelling magic that is cast upon you, as much as we Templars are able to disrupt spells. Think on that for a moment, my friends. Be wary of how prideful you become, lest you find yourself too much in common with such a fiend. Transcript of a lecture given by Verine, Templar commander of Tantervale 686 Steel. So this is a little bit interesting because it contradicts what you see in Inquisition. Because it says that they use fire and flames most commonly. But in Inquisition, I believe every single one of them had that lightning whip attack. I don't know if you played Inquisition, you probably remember. It's the one where they kind of pick the whip out of nowhere and then suddenly they've got some lightning they throw at you. All that sort of stuff. But there it says it's fire and ice. I can't remember what the Pride Demon did in this one. I think it just kind of stood there and hit you. Anyway, thought it was worth mentioning. That's a little bit different. Also, I think they make the Pride Demon in the games immune to all things, not just magic, for a short time, but Maybe it's just not mentioned here. Anyway. Varteril. Varteril? In the days before Arlathan, there was a city in the mountains beloved by Dermathan, Keeper of Secrets. Its people were wise beyond measure thanks to his counsel, and the city flourished. Then a high dragon settled in the mountains, and our hunger threatened the city. The elders cried out for Durthamin for protection as the dragon's rampages struck even closer, and for 3 days and nights the people shut themselves in their homes and watched the skies in dread. On the 4th day, Dermathan heard them. He whispered into the mountain, and the fallen trees of the forest gathered, shaping an immense and agile spider-like beast. It was the Vartel. With lightning speed, vicious strikes, and venomous spit, it drove back the serpent, and from then on it was guardian of the city and its people. Many years passed, the gods were trapped by Fen'Harel, and the people left to gather in Arlathan, but the Vartel kept its everlasting vigil, guarding Dermathan's city as it eventually crumbled into dust. To this day it stands there watching over the rubble. Any travellers foolish enough to wander there find themselves face to face with Wrath Incarnate. From Tales of the Vartel, as told by Gisherul, keeper of the Rarlafan clan of Dalish elves. This is very, very interesting because it would suggest that it says the high dragon settled in the mountains. I think that before we fought the Vartel, we went to the top of the mountain and we saw a dragon and we killed it. Now, could this either implies that this is where the Vartel was summoned originally, or this is where the dragon came down and they summoned another Vartel because there was a dragon, and this would imply the Dalish clan did it, who are currently there. Either way, it's a little bit It just adds a little bit more flavour. If it is the Dalish clan who is meant to have done it, the one who we met, then this would imply that they weren't telling us something, didn't trust us. But I suspect that it's trying to imply that this was summoned for a similar event. Maybe not the exact same event, but like it'd been there a while and the dragon was kind of symbolic of it. Anyway, let's look at items. We've got a lot of items because they're mostly sets that you get from Legacy. The key. The key is, and always will be, part of the cage that holds Corypheus. The prison's power is tied to that of the key, as the power of one waxes, the other wanes. The key's origins are lost to time. All we know is that it is an ancient, powerful weapon. The Wardens of old uncovered a few of its secrets, just enough to draw upon its magic to create the seals that hold Corypheus. Accounts indicate that the key attunes itself to whichever man or woman wields it in the rituals that reinforce Corypheus's chains. It is the nature of the magic, something in the blood. The key is currently attuned to one Malcolm Hawke, the last mage to hold it. The key is an essential part of strengthening the seals, and also the only thing that can break Corypheus free, from Jenka's research notes. Jenka being the Grey Warden that we meet there. Not the one that helps us, the one who gets controlled by Corypheus. So everything that she says might be a little bit, it might be tainted by the fact that Corypheus is making her believe things that are not 100% true. Because, as we know from playing Inquisition spoiler incoming, that Corypheus does break free, even though we strengthened the seals, as she puts it. I mean, we also killed Corypheus. We didn't do any of that. Corypheus is free. Anyway, armor of the Overseer. The Overseer was a nickname given to Magister Claudian Varentus, the last and perhaps most notorious of those assigned to the Maharin Jetstone Quarry just outside of Kirkwall, now known locally as the Bone Pit. The Magister was known for his sadistic cruelty. His malevolent social experiments were designed to make examples of those who disobeyed him. Varentus also noted that feeding slaves to his pet dragonlings was little more than they deserved. The slave revolt in 25 Ancient put an end to the Overseer. He was assaulted by a mob of slaves who stripped his enchanted robes and threw Varentus into the bone pit to be feasted upon by his dragonlings. What became of the robes during this chaos is unknown, but it is assumed they remained in Kirkwall. So he's the one who he's the reason why the bone pit was filled with dragons when we first got there. That's kind of cool. The Regalia of Wise Up. I find myself inexplicably drawn inexplicably to the principal's seal. My waking moments are consumed by thoughts of it. I make excuses so I might visit it. Then there are the journals of the Warden Mage who created the seal using the artifact known as the key. What is the key? Can this seal be broken without it? I have begun to suspect that these are the thoughts and not my own. Close scrutiny of my emotions and the thoughts have led me to the frightening conclusion that the obsession was planted in me by the creature they call Corypheus. Corypheus wants me to learn more about the seal and the key so he may pluck the knowledge from my mind. Corypheus wants to be free, and he will stop at nothing to achieve his goal. From the journal of Ermias, a Grey Warden mage who, shortly after penning his entry, threw himself off the highest level of the prison tower. Probably this is meant to symbolise that either he thought he was going to do what Corypheus wanted and sacrificed himself, or Corypheus knew what he was doing and then killed himself. The Vimark Mountains are impassable, save for a few little-known cavern routes. Most travellers who need to cross the range sail across the coast instead. This makes the central Vimarks remarkably isolated, perfect to conceal so insignificant a secret. Once construction of the prison commences, I recommend that we spread word that our new outpost is to both guard the pass and establish a greater Grey Warden presence in the free marches. If I may be so bold, I would also like to volunteer to be one of the wardens sent to the Vimarks. I hope you will consider my request. From a report by Magareth, Senior Grey Warden to the First Warden at Wise Up. Okay. I've dedicated my life to this place. 8 years I've spent here overseeing its construction. The First Warden says it is to be a prison, but will not tell me who or what this prison is meant to contain. I must simply continue on faith. Is this what my life has been reduced to carve a fortress out of the very rock for the Vimarks for a purpose I cannot begin to imagine? When I die, will these dim halls be all that is left of me, my one legacy? I will never see the Towers of Wise Up again, this much I know. The final entry in the journal of unnamed Grey Warden, presumed designer of Corypheus' prison. So this must be the former owners of the regalia that we found. Interesting. The shield of the knight herself. A shield of impressive weight to the point of being unwieldy if held by a weak hand. The crest is Dalish and Old Orlesian, and a delicate and deliberate styling can be a reference to only one person, the legendary Sir Aveline, the first woman to gain Orlesian knighthood. Abandoned as a baby, Aveline was raised by the Dalish and grew into a skilled warrior. Her elven parents encouraged Aveline to demonstrate her skill among human kin, but women were not allowed to enter Orlesian knighthood or compete in tournaments. She entered anyway, her features obscured by armour. Aveline defeated everyone she faced. Her final victory came to a brutal end when Kevla, a knight in the service of the Emperor, tripped Aveline out of frustration, knocking the helm from her head. Realising that his honour had been bested by a woman, Kevla demanded that the competition be nullified. Jeered by the crowd, he lashed out and killed the fallen Aveline. Prince Freyn had also faced Aveline in a tournament and saw her death as a great injustice. When Freyn became Emperor in 744 Storm, he formally recognised her skill by abolishing the practices that had excluded her. She was posthumously knighted, and while women are still a rarity in their Orlesian knighthood, those who enter revere Sir Aveline as their patron. Sir Aveline's career was short. It's impossible for her to have held all the equipment that has been attributed to her over the years. But the shield is still of exceptional quality, and Aveline may find its attribution to her namesake of interest. Well, she didn't like it very much when we gave it to her, but, she was at least not bored by it. The Helm of Wise Up. The Labyrinth has claimed the Warden Commander Aster. Ulrich tampered with one of the magical seals in this place and unwittingly released a demon upon us. Commander Aster ordered us to run. He would hold the creature back while we outfitted the prison's defences, trapping them both. The barriers came up and they will stay up. That was Commander Aster's last instruction, and we will follow it to the letter. We are unable to retrieve the Warden Commander's prized helm and the other trappings of his office. They will not be returned to the Wise Up and will remain with the Commander wherever he may be. For a torn Grey Warden report, the writing barely legible. So Ulrich is, could be the same Ulrich that we meet in Origins at the top of the Circle Tower. He was the guy who summoned all the demons and did all that stuff. And if it is the same Ulrich, this would imply that BioWare, if they have some kind of behind-the-scenes kind of lore stuff, would have him having his mind altered by Corypheus in some way. That's how I read that anyway. I could be completely wrong, it could be a different Ulrich, but could be a different name, it's definitely a similar name if it is a different name. I think that kind of story fits my version of the lore quite nicely, but maybe it's not true. Okay, Kirkwall, the gallows. Statues of tortured slaves fill the gallows courtway, a ghastly memento of Kirkwall's history. 1500 years ago, Kirkwall was the Tevinter Imperium's largest quarry, feeding the construction of the Imperial Highway. The Imperium's hunger for expansion led to legions of slaves being forced into working the quarry. When the Empire's construction phase ended, Kirkwall slid naturally into its new role as the capital of the slave trade, the gallows at its heart. The statues are not monuments to the suffering of slaves. Every inch and angle of the courtyard was designed by the magisters bent on breaking the spirits of newcomers. Executions here took place daily, sometimes hourly, and corpses were hung from giblets throughout the yard. New slaves trudging in from the docks saw what awaited them. When Our Lady turned her armies against the Imperium, the slaves of Kirkwall revolted and claimed the city for themselves. The gallows stood empty for 200 years, not to be reopened until the crowning of Divine Justina I. The gallows transformed the city again when the abandoned prison tower became the home of Kirkwall Circle. From Brother Jenna TV. We'll see a lot of him in this section. Rivienne. Nowhere in my travels, not in the heart of the Imperium, nor in the streets of Orzammar, have I felt so much an outsider as in Rivienne. The chant of light never truly reached the ears of these people. The years they spent under the thumb of the Qunari left most of the country zealous followers of the Khun. But resistance to the chant goes deeper than the Qunari War. The Rivienne refused to be parted from their seers, wise women who were in fact hedge mages, communicating with spirits and actually allowing themselves to become possessed. The Chantry prohibition against such magical practices violates millennia of local tradition. The Wardens Prison. The Grey Wardens Prison in the Vimmark Mountains is believed to have been constructed more than 1,000 years ago. The original method of construction has been lost to history, but the Warden commanders of the Free Marches have maintained the prison secret throughout the centuries. Has been lost to history, not... Anyway. The prison is concealed in a great rift in the Vimmark Mountains, far from any easily traversed mountain passes. The Wardens themselves have spread rumours of banditry and beasts to prevent explorers from approaching. The prison consists of a central tower built into the rift with magically maintained bridges allowing access at different levels. Each level is sealed by blood magic ritual in which a mage of untainted blood uses his own life essence to create a magical barrier that is impermeable from the outside yet impenetrable from within. This one-way access has caused the other Darkspawn, and perhaps unwary travellers, to be caught within the prison's confines. Those who disappear inside never re-emerge, apart from Hawke. Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is lore. Got a few extra bits of lore that we picked up. The History of the Chantry, Chapter 3. It is said that at the Battle of Valerian Fields, Mapharath stood and looked out over his armies. He had conquered the southern reaches of the greatest empire the world had ever known, and built splintered barbarian clans into a force to be feared. With pride in his heart, he turned to congratulate his men and found that they had turned from him. Mathrath fell to the evil of jealousy. After all that he had done, his wife was the one to receive all the glory. He saw his wife's power and influence and tired of his place as second husband below the Maker. His heart swelled with fury. If he had conquered just to have his wife wrested from him by an unforgotten god, a legion of faith-hungry rabble, then perhaps his war was not worth the trouble. Here, history and the Chant of Light come apart. History tells us that Mathrath looked north to the Central Imperium and saw nothing but more war against the rapidly regrouping army. He despaired. The Chant of Light holds Mathrath chafed with the jealousy of the Maker and jealousy of the glory that Andraste received, although it was he who led the armies. Mathrath travelled to the imperial city of Minrathous to speak with the Archon Hesserin. There he offered up his wife to the Imperium in return for a truce that would end hostilities once and for all. The Archon, eager to put down the voice of the prophet that stirred his own people against him, agreed. Mathrath led Andraste into an ambush where she was captured by Imperial agents, putting an end to her exalted march. Crowds of loyalists stood in the central square of Minrathous to watch Andraste's execution. By command of the Archon, she was burned at the stake in what the Imperium believed to be the most painful punishment imaginable. According to the Chantry, however, Andraste was instead purified and made whole by the flames, ascending to her life at the Maker's side. By all accounts, there was only silence when they expected screams. At the sight of the prophet burning, the crowds were filled with profound guilt, as if they had participated in a great blasphemy. So moving was the moment that the Archon himself drew his sword and thrust it into the prophet's heart, ending her torment and leaving those assembled to consider the weight of what they had seen. Whereas the execution of Andraste was meant to be a symbol of her defeat for the faith of the Maker, in truth it all but sealed the fate of the worship of the old gods and paved the way for the spread of the Maker's chant. From Brother Jenna TV again. The Demon's Gift. Before the first blight there lived an old man and a woman. One day a beautiful stranger came to their house seeking shelter. The old man and woman gave her food to eat and a downy mattress to sleep upon. In return she offered them a gold mirror that would grant 3 wishes. Looking into the mirror, the woman frowned at her wrinkles and grey hair. "I wish I was young again," she said. Suddenly the face of a lovely maiden stared back at her. The man angrily grabbed the mirror, saying, "You're so selfish, you could have given youth to us both if I wish you weren't so stupid." At once the woman was brilliant beyond measure and saw that her husband had never loved her. He tolerated her only because her age and ignorance made his own seem less by comparison. Angry now, the old woman grabbed for the mirror. At the same time they both said, "I hate you, I wish that you get exactly what you deserve." And with that they were back together, both ugly and old, but now knowing exactly how much contempt they had for each other. Interesting story. History of Kirkwall, Chapter 3. Also, if you're meant to find these chapters in order, that would imply that we have missed Chapter 2 of History of the Chantry. Just a small thing. Sometimes they put them out of order just to make you look around a little bit more. The Canary first thundered into Kirkwall in 756 Storm during the last of the new Exalted Marches. The collected nations of Thetas were attempting to drive the Canary from the northern mainland once and for all. The Canary armies were on the retreat, but in a desperate gamble, their fleet circled around Amaranthine Coast and landed a great force near the marcher city of Ostwick. Their plan was to overwhelm the marcher cities of Starkhaven and Kirkwall, Starkhaven to block the roads leading north, and Kirkwall to block the ships on the Waking Sea from coming from Orlais, all in an attempt to deny supplies to the Thetas armies assaulting Rivian. The attack on Starkhaven eventually failed, but Kirkwall was attacked in a daring night raid where the Canary used their leashed Cerberus mages in an unprecedented display of sorcery. The walls were torn down, the city taken, and for the next 4 years, Kirkwall endured the most brutal occupation in its history. Writings from that time are scarce, but it was not until after the city was free that the Canary's deeds came to light: children taken from their families, forced conversion of the Canary religion, and brutal labour camps. It's ironic that the old slave quarters of Lowtown, still intact after centuries, provided the perfect means for the Canary to control the city's people. When the famous Orlesian Chevalier, Sir Michael Lafayette, rode into the city after finally defeating the Canary defenders, he wrote, "Kirkwall is full of people with empty eyes that have had all independent thought driven from them." When Lafayette was appointed the city's first Viscount by Emperor 760 Storm, he made it his mission to undo the religious conditioning. The Lafayette bloodline remains popular enough that when the city finally rebelled against Orlesian rule in 805 Blessed, Viscount remained the enduring title for Kirkwall's rulers despite its origin. More from Brother Jen TV, and it also explains why people in Kirkwall really hate the Canary. Like, this is, they see the Canary, they've come into Kirkwall, and they're worried that what they're going to do is they're going to do another night raid, they're going to take it all over, they're going to use their mages to attack everyone. It explains a little bit of the apprehension that they have over all of these Canary, which I think is quite interesting, that they've got, like, there's a reason. They're like just worried about history repeating itself. Okay. Amathorn, the Waste Yard. You who must serve beneath the empty sky, you stand between this poison and the stone. The ancestors will remember when all others have forgotten your name. Remember your oath, it must endure, even beyond death itself. Be vigilant. If the persistent one awakens, you will know by these signs. The air will fill with the scent of putrefaction. You will hear a sound like the candescence of drums. Malvernius the Defiler will try to weaken your will and compel you to bear the orb out of Amaphorn, but you must hold fast. This is a sacred duty and cannot be forsworn lest the stone fall to poison and death. Interesting, I wonder where we got this. I can't remember. Okay. Amaphorn the Lonely Vigil. One Watcher each generation will be chosen from the Warrior caste. He will stand guard until his death. Only the constant vigil of the Stone's children can keep the foulness of Malvernius at bay. The burden of living in exile beneath the sun is terrible, but this sacrifice as Amaphorn will ensure the sanctity of the stone forever. Valos Atrendum. By decree of Paragon Ilona. I think we killed Malvernius. I think that might be where we got these from. Amaphorn the Foul. We called it Malvernius, the pestilent one. It devoured Tigers, turning our fairest work into noxious waste. It consumed living warriors, turned their bodies into slime, and when its hunger was not abated, it consumed the bodies of our ancestors. Foulness came from its touch, poison and filth and desecration. It threatened even the stone itself. The Shapers bound it, chained in lyrium, stained with the blood of 100 warriors. But within the orb it hungered, and it waited. We carried it here to the wastelands of the surface, where it can threaten nothing of value. The stone will live, the stone will live. We have sworn to the stone will live, the stone must live. We have sworn to defend it from the foul one at any price. Interesting. Thetas Calendar. Ah, good, it's going to tell us how this calendar system works. Perfect. For most good folk, the details of our calendar have little purpose. It is useful only for telling them when the summer day festival will be held, when snows are expected to begin, and when the harvest must be complete. The namings of the years are a matter for historians and taxmen, and a few, if pressed, could even tell you the reasons our current age is named after dragons. It is 930 Dragon, the 30th year of the 9th age since the crowning of the Chantry's first divine. Each age is exactly 100 years, with the next age's name chosen in the 99th year. The scholars in Valwayo advised the Chantry of portents seen in the 99th year, and the Chantry authorities pore over the research for months before the divines announce the name of the imminent age. The name is said to be an omen of what is to come, and the people of Thetas will face for the next 100 years. The current age was not meant to be the Dragon Age. Throughout the last months of the Blessed Age, the Chantry was preparing to declare the Sun Age, named for the symbol of the Elysian Empire, at which time sprawled over much of the south of Thetas and controlled both Ferelden and what is now Navarre. It was to be a celebration of Elysian imperial glory. But the rebellion in Ferelden reached a head, and the Battle of Riverdane was just about to begin. A particular event occurred. A rampage, the rising of a dreaded High Dragon. The dragons had been thought practically extinct since the days of Navarran dragon hunts, and they say to see this great beast rise from the frostbacks was both majestic and terrifying. As the rampage began, the High Dragon decimated the countryside in its search for food. The elderly divine Faustine II abruptly declared the Dragon Age. Some say the divine was declaring support for Orlais in the battle against Ferelden. Since the dragon is an element of the Dufale family heraldry of King Megarin, the so-called usurper of King Ferelden. Be that as it may, the High Dragon's rampage turned towards the Elysian side of the Frostback Mountains, killing hundreds and sending thousands more fleeing to the northern coast. The Ferelden rebels won the Battle of Riverdane, ultimately securing their independence. Many think that the Dragon Age will come to represent a time of violence and dramatic change for all Thetas. It remains to be seen. My brother Jenna TV. Now, interestingly, I would say that there is a high chance that this is meant to be the dragon that you find in the Frostback Mountains in Origins when you go to the Temple of Sacred Ashes, which, tying it back to Brother Genitivi, is where he was the one to find the Sacred Ashes there. And this is where the dragon would be. So I thought that was very interesting. Also tells us how the ages are named, but gives us no way to work out, where is Storm? Storm is just before the Dragon Age, I know this, but then there's they'll say Blessed Age, is that before Storm? So Storm, is there another one between it? It's not very useful. Not very practical as a naming system. Anyway. Alienage culture. There have always been alienages. They have been around for as long as the elves and shems have lived in the same lands. Ours isn't even the worst. They say that in Valvario has 10,000 elves living in a space no bigger than Denrose Market. Their walls are supposedly so high the daylight doesn't reach the Veneradil until midday. But don't be so anxious to start tearing down the walls and picking fights with the guards. They keep us out more than they keep in. We don't have to live here, you know. Sometimes a family gets a good break and they buy a house in the docks or the outskirts of town. If they're lucky, they come back to the alienage after looters have burned their house down. The unlucky ones just go to the pauper's fields. Here we're among family. We look out for each other. Here we do what we can remember to remember the old ways. The flat ears who have gone out there, they're stuck. They will never be as human. And they've gone and thrown away being elven. So where does that leave them? Nowhere. Sarathena, Haren of the Hiver Alienage. Dumat, the Dragon of Silence. Dumat was the most powerful of the old gods, known as the Dragon of Silence for the vows of silence undertaken by his acolytes. Chantry lore claims it was he who taught the first Magister Archon Thalius the powers of blood magic. It was Dumat's followers who are believed to have entered the Golden City, hereby corrupting it with their presence. Modern scholars question whether the old gods were truly gods or whether they were merely more advanced species of high dragon, perhaps capable of magic or speech, and that they were worshipped by ancient divinters. Whatever the truth of the history, Dumat was also the first of the imprisoned old gods to have been discovered by Darkspawn, and thus transformed into the first archdemon, the monstrous force behind the first blight. More by Brother Gen TV. The Carta. The castless dwarfs of Orzammar have few prospects. Consigned to life in a crumbling ruin on the social and economic fringes of the mighty dwarven capital, most resort to begging, prostitution or crime. Just as all rivers will eventually join the sea, all castless who turn to crime eventually become part of the Carta. The hero of Ferelden decimated the ranks of this ancient gang while rallying dwarves to join in the battle of against the archdemon Urmathal. Unable to recover the power they once had in Orzammar, they turned their attention to Topside, using groups of surface-dwelling dwarves to smuggle weapons, lyrium, surface luxuries, people and other goods between Orzammar and human lands. Despite the flow of business, its members are still desperate and violent. With no strong leader to rein in their excesses, they have little sense of dwarven honour and freely break their word, double-crossing allies and renege on deals. Yeah, I like how it mentions that the hero Ferelden decimated their ranks, because I believe that you didn't have to do that. Like, there was some of that, like there was some bits we had to go in, but there was like a specific set of quests where you know, systematically took them apart. But I wonder whether it would say this anyway, like even if you only did the minor amount. Anyway. The First Darkspawn. Those who have been cast down, the demons who would be gods, began to whisper to men from their tombs within the earth, and the men of Tevinter heard and raised altars to pretender gods once more, and in return were given in hushed whispers the secret of darkest magic. But it was not the worship the false gods craved. They urged the magisters to ever greater depravity, rewarding them with power and more. Arrogance became a great caged beast in the lands of Tevinter, an emptiness that consumed all and could never be filled. To satisfy its hunger, the mage lords are goading at the goading of the gods, assaulted the Golden City, heart of all creation, to take the Maker's power for themselves. With magic born of mingled blood and lyrium, the Tevinter broke into the Maker's house, but the promised power did not await them there. The moment they entered the city of the Maker, their sins poisoned it. What had been golden turned black. Violently they were flung from the world of dreams back into the waking world. Twisted and corrupted by their crime and magic into monsters, they fled underground, unable to bear the light of the day. The First Darkspawn. Still doesn't explain where Darkspawns actually come from. Like, Darkspawn, like, if there was only maybe a small group of Magisters, would there not only be a small group of Darkspawn? There seem to be unlimited amounts of Darkspawn. It doesn't explain where they actually come from, but there are other theories for that. The Enigma of Kirkwall. And now, this is one that we have read, so I'm not going to read it again, but I will, scroll down through it if you want to pause and read it. Here is your chance, but basically this one explains that there is some secret beneath Kirkwall, and a bunch of people trying to find it. It does not end in a proper conclusion just yet. Okay, the Seekers of Truth. Sir Whitmore. When I mentioned the powers greater than the Templars, I didn't mean the Chantry. Sure, they command the Templars, but that was not always so. The Inquisition once hunted heretics and cultists as well as mages, but their reign of terror ended only with the inception of the Circle of Magi. They became the Templar Order, for good or ill the watchers of the mages and the martial arm of the Chantry. It was a mutually beneficial agreement, but few know that the Chantry created yet another order to watch over the Templars, the Seekers of Truth. I know little of them myself, but I can say, following things with certainty, that they serve the divine and they are feared. When a Seeker steps from the shadows, Templars run for cover, because why would he come unless the Templars somehow failed in their duties? Seekers are extremely effective in investigating abuses within the Circle, and hunting particularly evasive apostates. It's said they are immune to a blood magic's mind control and possess the ability to read minds or erase memories, but this is likely exaggeration. So we return to my original dilemma. Who watches powers greater than that of the Templars? One assumes it's the divine, but how much could she know about their activities when the very existence is a mystery to most? So, the Seekers, in case you don't know, from Inquisition, more Inquisition spoilers, and possibly Dragon Age 2 spoilers if you care about that. This is Cassandra is a Seeker, so she is meant to be watching the Templar Order. That's not entirely right. She explains it a little bit more in Inquisition. I'm not going to go into myself, mainly because I can't remember it, but, you know, if you want more, Inquisition. Tevinter, the Magisters. Before it became the Imperium, Tevinter was ruled by a dynasty of kings, and long before the Chantry there was a circle of Magi, the society of mages in each city. The titles our modern circles use, Enchanter, Senior Enchanter, First Enchanter, all originated here, but above the First Enchanter the circle of Tevinter had another office, Magister. The Magisters formed a council of the most powerful mages in the kingdom. They convened in Minrathous and held dominion over all magic in the land. When Daenerys seized the throne in 1195 Ancient, the Court of Magisters became the Royal Court, and the Magister was the only title of nobility recognised in Tevinter. The Imperium today is a magocracy. Political power is solely in the hands of the Magisters, who come only from the ranks of the Circle. Every young mage aspires to be a Magister's apprentice because it's the best chance of ascending to the rank of Magister themselves. From Sister Petrine. Now, she's the one who's very, very into the Chantry, so if you remember that. The Vale family. Before the Vales came to power, Starkhaven was ruled in quick succession by a number of petty warlords. Some were genuine Banorn, but others were little more than bandits. Tired of the constant petty raiding and warfare between Starkhaven and neighbouring cities, the original Lord Vale organised a peaceful protest against King Ironfist, known the lowborn, self-declared King of Starkhaven. Hundreds of Starkhaven's most prominent citizens fasted for 10 days and nights on the steps of the Chantry, their numbers increasing every day. When the soldiers began deserting in droves at this example of piety, Ironfist surrendered his sword to the Templars and left Starkhaven forever. In gratitude, the people of Starkhaven demanded that Lord Vale be king. He refused, however, said he had no right to that title. He was instead proclaimed the Prince of Starkhaven, and his family has ruled there ever since. They remain devout, dedicating at least one or son or daughter per generation to become a cleric in the Chantry. Oh, so this actually changes a whole bunch, because we keep hearing how Sebastian is Prince Sebastian. We keep hearing Prince Sebastian. You assume that that's because he has not yet taken the role of king. There is no role of king. He is actually already the highest rank. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Overall. Okay. Well, let's go on to the next one. Templars. Often portrayed as stoic and grim, the Orders of Templars was crafted as the martial arm of the Chantry. Armed with the ability to dispel and resist magic, in addition to their formidable combat talents, the Magisters are uniquely qualified to act as both a foil for apostates and mages who refuse to submit to the authority of the Circle, and the first line of defense against the powers of blood mages and abominations. While mages often resent the Templars as symbols of the Chantry's control over magic, the people of Thetas see them as saviors and holy warriors, champions of all that is good, armed with piety, enough to protect the world from the ravages of foul magic. In reality, the Chantry's militant arm looks first for skilled warriors with unshakable faith in the Maker, with a flawless moral centre as a secondary concern. Templars must carry out their duty with emotional distance, and the Order of the Templars prefers soldiers with religious fervour and absolute loyalty over paragons of virtue who might question orders when it comes time to make difficult choices. The Templars' power derives from the substance lyrium, a material believed to be the raw element of creation. While mages use lyrium in their arcane spells and rituals, Templars ingest the primordial material to enhance their abilities and resist and dispel magic. Lyrium use is regulated by the Chantry, but some Templars suffer from lyrium addiction, the effects of which include paranoia, obsession, and dementia. Templars knowingly submit themselves to this treatment in the service of the Order and the Maker. It is this sense of ruthless piety that most frightens mages when they draw the Templars' attention. When Templars are sent to eliminate a possible blood mage, there is no reasoning with them, and if the Templars are prepared, the mage's magic is all but useless. Driven by their faith, Templars are one of the most feared and respected forces in Thetas, first enchanter of Starkhaven. Okay, the Fade. The study of the Fade is as old as humankind. For as long as men have dreamed, we have dreamed of walking its twisting paths, sometimes catching a glimpse of the city at its heart. Always as close as our own thoughts, but impossibly separated from our own world. The Tevinter Imperium once spent a vast fortune of gold, lyrium, and human slaves in an effort to map the terrain of the Fade, an ultimately futile endeavour. Although portions of it belong to powerful spirits, all of the Fade is in constant flux. The Imperium succeeded in finding the disparate and ever-shifting realms of a dozen demon lords, as well as cataloguing a few hundred types of spirits before they were forced to abandon the project. The relationship of dreamers to the Fade is complex, and when entering the Fade through the use of lyrium, mortals are not able to control or affect it. The spirits who dwell there, however, can, and as the Enchantry teaches us, a great flow of spirits is that they have neither imagination nor ambition. They create what they see through their sleeping visitors, building elaborate copies of our cities, people, and events, which, like the reflections of a mirror, ultimately lack the context or life of their own. Even the most powerful demons merely plagiarize the worst thoughts and fears of mortals, and build their realms with no more ambition than to taste life. First Enchanter, Josephus? Interesting name. The Mage Underground. To Knight Commander Meredith, RE the so-called Mage Underground. Every circle in Thetas suffers from individual mages who rebel and attempt to flee. These apostates are usually found and returned to the Chantry or mercifully killed if they have fallen to demonic temptation. Until now, I have never served anywhere that the populace does not fully cooperate in hunting these rebels. Here in Kirkwall, citizens actually help rebel mages escape. Escaped apostates have survived their freedom long enough to form the Mage Underground, a network that feeds and shelters escapees and even transports apostates into remote areas of free marches and beyond our easy reach. As of late, the movement has grown bolder, sending raiding parties into the gallows in an attempt to break out mages who lack the skills or willpower to escape on their own. This is a grave concern. My recommendation is to fight back both physically and in turning the minds and hearts of their supporters against them. Knight Captain Cullen. Okay. So interestingly, Cullen's like the guy in charge of the Mage Underground, but he quite clearly knows that I'm a mage and hangs around with other mages. I don't know how he can't quite put this together. He's like, I wonder who this Mage Underground could be. Seeing these guys walking along full robes, they got this staff behind them, they got this magical glowing stuff, they use spells in front of them. I wonder who the mages could be. He's not really very bright, Cullen, all things considered. Or maybe he doesn't care as much as he says. Beyond the veil, spirits and demons, it is challenging enough for the casual observer to tell the difference between the Fade and the creatures that live within it, let alone between the one type of spirit and another. In truth, there is little that distinguishes them, even from the most astute mages. Since spirits are not physical entities and therefore not restricted to recognizable forms, or even having a form at all, one can never tell for certain what is alive and what is merely part of the scenery. It is therefore advisable for inexperienced researcher to greet all objects he encounters. Typically, we misuse the term spirit to refer to only the benign or at least malevolent creatures of the Fade, but in truth all Desians of the realm beyond are spirits. As the Chant of Light notes, everything within the Fade is a mimicry of our world, a poor imitation, for the spirits do not remotely understand what they are copying. It is no surprise that much of the Fade appears like a manuscript translated from Tevinter into Elysian and back again by drunken initiates. In general, spirits are not complex, or rather they are not as complex as we understand such things. Each one seizes upon a single facet of human experience, rage, hunger, compassion, hope, etc., and this one idea becomes their identity. We classify these demons We classify as demons those spirits who identify themselves with a darker human emotion and ideas. Which is interesting. I'm going to stop in the middle here, is because it says they focus on a single facet of human experience. But we know of at least one spirit, Justice, who has now changed himself into Vengeance. So it appears like they can focus on one, but they can switch if they want to. Or if they're given reason enough to, although Justice is unique in many ways, as explained in Awakening. Well, not unique as a spirit, but unique in his situation. The most common and weakest form of demon one encounters in the Fade is the Rage Demon. They are much like perpetually boiling kettles, for they exist only to vent hatred, but rarely have an object to hate. Somewhat above these are the Hunger Demons, who do little but eat or attempt to eat everything they encounter, including other demons. This is rarely successful. And then there are Sloth Demons. They are the first intelligent creatures one typically finds in the Fade. They are dangerous only on those rare occasions that they can be induced to get up and do harm. Desire Demons are more clever and far more powerful, using forms of bribery to induce mortals into their realms. Wealth, love, vengeance, whatever lies closest to your heart. The most powerful demons yet are the Pride Demons, perhaps because they, among all their kind, most resemble men. From Enchanter Mimdrommel. The Basket of Lost Socks. In my career as first enchanter of the Circle of Ansburg, I have lost 208 socks of various and sundry descriptions. Utterly, without a trace. Some Alaric, the Templar who supervises the Circle's laundry rooms, assures me that this is a common, natural phenomenon. Hogwash, I say, it is physically impossible for an article of material of the material world to vanish completely, and leaves no sign of its passage. Only rational explanation, therefore, must be that the disappearances are magical in origin. This, I hope, will be the definitive treatise on the subject. I set upon my research with the following premise: since it is a well-known fact that objects of worldly origin cannot travel between places in Thetas without crossing the intervening distance, then the socks must originate in the Fade itself. They are emanations of some spirit projected into the waking world and whimsically recalled when spirit's desires. I therefore devised a plan to observe my socks over a period of 8 months. I hid within a sock blind so that I might catch them unawares, both in the physical realm and the Fade, and hopefully witness their natural behaviour firsthand. From the Interplay of Spirits in the Common Laundry Room by First Enchanter Ludwig of Ansburg. Totally mad that he is. Crate of live Death Watch Beetles. The loud tapping sounds of the Death Watch beetle is widely believed to foretell a death in the household. In Navarre, the beetle is prized. Households sometimes keep one in a small cage for good luck. However, the Rivani consider them to be extremely ill omen and kill the beetles on sight. The strangest reaction to the Death Watch beetle, however, happened in Valrayo in 862 Blessed. Upon the death of her husband after a long illness, Lady Aveline Fernand took to the beetles much as she commissioned a dark silken gown patterned after its distinctive appearance, right down to the legs and wings. Arrival at the royal court in this ensemble sent a stir throughout the empire. Within a week, every dowager in Orlais was wearing beetle brooches, beetle masks, and capes evoking beetle wings. The sensations finally came to an end when widow of Lord Virchin appeared in the ball with a live Deathwatch beetles in her hair. One fell into the emperor while he was greeted by Lady Virchin, and his Imperial Majesty's scream could clearly be heard on the outskirts of the city. The horrified emperor declared that never again were these creatures to appear in his sight. From Brother Genitivi. Andraste in the nude reposed, invisible. Can a stone lie without purpose? Can it beckon with raw feminine command, yet shine with inspiring virtue? That challenge was posed to sculptor Anwar de Dlas, artisan and son of Emperor Vogin of Orlais. It was busy work and rhetorical in a time of excess, but answer he did, with reserves of a nation and passion unhealthy. His subject, Our Lady, although not as depicted in traditional statuary. And Arwan's mad ambition summoned the form of Andraste uninterrupted by the drapings of war and devoid of the vestments she assumed after her death. It was living, commanding, obscene, yet expired. To gaze upon it was to be enthralled, spiritually and physically. It was only later that the alarmed Chantry officials. They blanched at the thought of Our Lady being possessed of such a base appeal, even as they too were drawn. The work could not be destroyed without threatening the balance between the Empire and the Hallowed, so a grave censorship was enacted under the guise of honouring. Enchanters were tasked with extending the ethereal that hides the fade, drawing around it the form of a cloak. Our Lady remains in the stone and in this world, but the mortal eyes are forever denied her treasure and glory. She is veiled in every sense. As in all things, unintended consequences must vex those with pure intentions. Modesty would have been better served by a thickened sheet, drawn back when techniques were to be studied. As it is, the sculpture's skills are accessible only to an exploring touch, defining the shape by her infinite caress. All manner of strange congress has stemmed from the tempted hands and innocent wishes for clarity. From Art and Shame, Forbidden Wonders of Faith by Fonsine de Petroforte, translated by Philum, a bard. Forbidden Knowledge. Tyrone's Book of Blood. This one is going to be incomplete. Tyrone's Book of Blood. Was Dabon's hat one mage or a full cabal? I found another reference to Zegabic in his back journal. The blood feeds, the blood nourishes. In blood the call is heard. In blood the deal is made. The master bathed in the river of blood. Then the great Zenobek came. In 4-2 Black is the oldest account of the Forbidden Ones, although most mages consider them a hoax. But someone had to make that first deal, the first contact with the other side, from the unknown mage's account. The first of the mages to cast themselves deep in the Fade, search for answers and power, always power. They found the Forbidden Ones, Zenobek, Ishmashil, Caxcan the Unbound, and the Formless Ones. Many conversations were had, and much of the fabric of the world revealed, and thus the magic of blood was born. Gax-Kang is, I believe, a reference to Kang Gax in Baldur's Gate, who was the toughest enemy in that game, and I believe he is meant to be the toughest enemy in Origins? Could be wrong about that. You find him in Denerim somewhere. Even those who consider this folly dare not utter those names. Tyrone's Prophecies. The fell grimoire holds the names of power. It holds the key to their summoning. Zenobek will return. He will feast on the blood of thousands of my enemies. It is inevitable. Reason it's unfinished. We only found 3 of these books. The quest is bugged. You can't find the rest of them, as far as I know. Or maybe you can find the rest of them, but you can't finish it. I couldn't be bothered once I knew it was, once it was bugged, I knew that there was no point in continuing because we'd just get to a point where we'd stop, and I didn't know where that point was. Characters. Anders after the Deep Roads. In the past 3 years, Anders has become more reclusive, verging on paranoid, and when not with the champion, he spends his time among the frail and refugees in Darktown, healing their ills and counting on their loyalty to protect him from the curious Templars. After his friend Carl was made tranquil, then killed, Anders was convinced that the Chantry's entire structure must be overturned to free mages completely from their control. He has joined a group of like-minded apostates who are slowly wearing away Kirkwall's circle by helping other mages escape. The spirit of vengeance inside him has manifested more strongly, making it nearly impossible for him to control himself when fighting Templars. Divine Justinia V. Formerly revered Mother Dorothea of Orlais, Divine Justinia V rose to power after the death of Divine Beatrix III in the year 934 of the Dragon Age. Little is known about Dorothea's background before she joined the Chantry as initiate. Within the Grand Citadel Cathedral, rivals suggest that her reticence in discussing her past means she's hiding something. Few of her flock, however, can imagine her as anything other than a gentle mother of obvious faith. When Beatrix III was felled by a massive stroke, she survived just long enough to put forth Dorothea's name as a candidate for a replacement. Grand clerics from throughout Thetas flocked to Orlais for the grand census, and a private meeting between the heads of all the chantries to select the next divine. Although ritual demanded the decision be unanimous, servants attending the census whispered the heated debate over Dorothea's suitability. Her worldly background and her demonstrated forgiveness for all sinners were held against her. Ultimately, however, the will of Beatrix III prevailed, and Dorothea began her reign as Justinia V. Also, what's a little bit weird about her past is that she apparently knows who's that one from? Leliana, that was it, from the first, from Origins. You find out that she and Leliana are quite close in Inquisition, as was Divine Justinia and the other one, the Seeker, whose name has completely gone out of my mind. I said it earlier. Anyway, that Seeker person. Cassandra, that's it, yes. She also is quite fond of Cassandra, and Cassandra is very much not the typical Chantry person. Grand Cleric Elethena. We will never have peace unless we try to understand one another. Revered Mother Elethena resumed the mantle of Grand Cleric almost 20 years ago. She was responsible for the spiritual well-being of the Sun-Free Marches, anything south of Starkhaven and the Minanter River. She has long been a calming presence in the city, renowned for her kindness and generosity. People frequently turn to her to mediate disputes, particularly those involving the powerful Templar Order, over whom she holds authority as the Chantry's ranking representative. Some claim that Elethena's advanced age has rendered her inefficient and that she allows Knight Commander Meredith more leeway than with each passing year. Some are calling on the new Divine, Justinian V, to appoint a replacement, but they do so quietly, for Elethena is by far the most beloved priest the city has ever known. Fenris, after the Deep Roads. Since the adventure into the Deep Roads, Fenris has remained in Kirkwall, maintaining a residence at Duranius? Abandoned mansion. That it doesn't truly belong to him has aroused the interest of curious neighbours and thus the city guard. Aveline has so far deflected their inquiries on Fenris's behalf, however she's told them under no uncertain terms the situation will not remain that way forever. Although seemingly unconcerned about the house, Fenris has become increasingly nervous over the last year. He doesn't know if he's actually free from pursuit, or if his former master is planning something even worse. He tries not to think about it, taking pleasure in having a home for the first time in his life, even though his contact with anyone outside the jobs he takes as mercenary is very limited. Isabella, after the Deep Roads. Isabella spent the past years trying to track down the relic that she has lost in shipwreck. She believes that it is still in Kirkwall, although she thinks why she thinks so is a mystery. Despite her insistence that she's keeping a low profile to avoid her old employer Castellon, Isabella seems to go out of her way to cause trouble. Recently, one of her jewels evolved into a bar brawl that then spilled out into Lowtown, involving over 20 people. That the fracas caused a great deal of damage to several merchant stalls. Isabella spent the next 2 weeks in the brig. Guard Captain Aveline allowed her release, but not before extracting a promise that Isabella would not duel on public property again. Whether Isabella actually keeps this promise remains to be seen. Also, we are going to go find the relic when we go back into the game after the Mark of the Assassin DLC. Merrill, after the Deep Roads. It's a keeper's place to remember, even the dangerous things. That's an awful Merrill impression, but we'll go with it. Since her arrival in Kirkwall's elven alienage, Merrill has had difficulty adjusting. Her neighbours ignore her existence. Even the most determined socialites in Lowtown cross the street to avoid her. She also gets lost frequently, a matter that doesn't seem to be solving itself through time or familiarity with the city. On separate occasions, she has accidentally found herself in the Viscount's bathing room, the Chantry's airing cupboard, and in the middle of a dog racing track in Darktown. Sebastian, after the Deep Roads. Sebastian has spent the past 3 years advancing his campaign to retake Starkhaven. He has been travelling extensively between Kirkwall and the other Free March cities, attempting to recruit sufficient allies to build an army. With Albert securing the Hawke's family a place among Kirkwall's nobility, the two have crossed paths a few times, but the exiled prince like Sebastian has far better success than Albert to the far better access than Albert to the Viscount and other heads of state. So far, though, few families have agreed to support for Sebastian, with actual troops leaving him in a difficult position of trying to retake a city with no army. Varric, after the Deep Roads. Bianca sends her regards. Bartrand vanished after the Deep Road expedition, and Varric had to divert his attention from seeking for his wayward brother and keeping the now abandoned family business from falling apart. Varric now occupies his brother's seat in the Dwarven Merchants Guild. Technically, he rarely attends guild meetings and is hardly ever seen occupying the chair in the hall that belongs to House Thetas. He prefers to run the Thetas financial empire from his suite at the Hanged Man, and he never replies to his mail. Letters and notes. Almost done. To capture the Hawke. We have already read this. In fact, anything that says Corypheus, we have already read. Flora Harriman's diary, we have also already read. Great One's Key, we have read. First Legionnaire, yeah. See, all of these we have read. Yes, I think. Yes. We have read all of these. We've read Malcolm Hawke's reply. We've read Privilege to the Wardens, so Aldrich's letter. Basically, everything in this section is... actually, I can already say we've read all of this, because everything in this section is quest notes. So you need to read them to do the quests. Notes are the same. Art of War is actually, as you can see, it's just tutorials, so we're actually done. Well, that didn't take as long as I thought it did, or at least I don't think it did. I was able to finish in one go this time without being interrupted. So thank you for watching. Next time, on the actual Let's Play that's going on right now, we will be moving on to the Mark of the Assassin DLC, completely blind, haven't done that before, looking forward to it. And then we'll be on to Act 3, which I guess is much shorter than Act 2, because Act 2 has 8 main quests, Act 3 has 4 main quests, one of them optional, one of them you do after, like one of them you do anyway. So I'm interested to see how that ends up. Anyway, thank you for watching, I will see you